Hello, everybody. It's your old friends at Nerds of Us, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Best of All Worlds podcast, where myself, Jonathan, and the man to know, Captain Jerry Soul, go through as many Star Trek episodes as we can and try and find the best one of them all. And right now we are on our, I think it's our 34th episode now, Jerry. And we have done very well for ourselves in this regard. We've come across some really cracking episodes. And as we all know, because even for a refresher for ourselves, because it's been a while since our last episode, we are obviously on an arc of particular episodes, some dark editions of Star Trek, if you will. And this one is no different to the ones we've seen before. We've had zombie episodes, we've had more psychological horrors, we've had monster horrors. This one's a little bit more thriller, is the best way to describe it, isn't it? A bit of a manhunty episode, kind of.
Yeah. Absolutely, you wouldn't necessarily call this a horror. There are definitely kind of jump scary type things in it, but it's definitely more of a psychological thriller, which I actually love because there's not many of those in Star Trek. I'm like, oh no. Yeah, but this also gets to showcase the fact that yes, okay, he gets the shit kicked out of him 90% of the time, but my God, is he an absolute badass in this? And that's my namesake, Mr. Chief O'Brien.
Yes. If anything, actually, if memory serves from the episodes we've watched so far, this is actually probably the first episode where he's taken center stage, or at least certainly shared the stage with a certain duplicitous Cardassian with crazy eyes. But in that case, at least, it's shown why O'Brien is seen as a good soldier, because particularly in the Next Generation and in some of Deep Space Nine, we're told he's done like X amount of combat and X amount of violence, but not actually necessarily seeing it. And this episode certainly is going to beg it to differ on that one. But yeah, I suppose the wider content, you probably know from the title of the video already, we are going to be reviewing the episode Empok Nor, which comes at the end of season 5, which is pretty much it's in the thick of the Dominion War, has to be said, because we've a good few. The first few seasons of DS9 was a nice little preamble, bit of world building, a lot about the Bajorans, and they're kind of rebuilding after the Cardassian occupation, and a lot of it was about the use of Deep Space Nine, which was essentially as a kind of supposedly you could argue like a kind of a space internment camp, a means of Cardassia to keep hold of Bajor. And what wasn't necessarily, it was talked about but not necessarily established, was the fact that there was multiple of these type of sites like Deep Space Nine around. So Empok Nor is basically where we go to the sister equivalent of this ship and essentially assess the damage of it. That's essentially where we're going to here. So as I said, this is very O'Brien heavy. This is very not Ducats heavy, excuse me, Garrick heavy. Which is great because again we've seen bits and bobs of the character so far, but we haven't got stuck into them yet, and I think we've been tactical in that sense to save ourselves the trouble. But yeah, Jerry, obviously it's an episode you're looking forward to.
Absolutely. When it comes to Deep Space Nine, there isn't a bad character, isn't a bad main character. There really isn't. And you would consider Garrick a main character at this point. He's not just one of those hangers-on anymore. He's a main character in this. So when you pit two of the better characters in this show against each other, that's really, really good. Obviously, we're rooting for our guy Chief O'Brien because we're hoping that he's going to say an Jesus every now and then, but unfortunately he doesn't. He does get a bollocks out every once or twice, I think, but. In this particular episode, I don't think so. But it's a case that these are characters that you've rooted for. Even Garrick, who he was a member of the Obsidian Order. He's not a nice guy. He has tortured and killed people. But I imagine there's no less skeletons in Chief O'Brien's closet either. This is the thing about it. But you root for both characters in other episodes and other times. Especially when Garrick gets kind of lulled into joining his father and mentor to fight the Dominion, and you just know it's not going to end well for him. And luckily for him, he was rescued. But you were really rooting for him, so he has become one of those really beloved characters. By this time in the show, he has become one of those beloved characters. So to see how he is in this one is a different. It's different, but it's also familiar. Yeah, because it's Garrick. So yeah, really, I love this episode. Really looking forward.
Awesome. Well, let's not waste any more time because we're certainly going to be talking about the characters to death in the review of this episode, which will come after this because we're about to watch the episode in full. And if you are aware of this series, if you've watched us before, because again, we've had 33 other editions, you have a bit of catching up to do if you haven't. We are going to watch the episode in full with our commentary, our thoughts, and reactions, and then we're going to review the episode afterwards with a bit of trivia. So if you want to watch along, because again, this is the best of all worlds, you can both either be here for the watch along or for the review or both. You press play when we do on your streaming device of choice and watch the episode along with it. If not, give us about 45 minutes and then we'll be stuck into the review of the episode instead. But until then, Jerry, are you ready to start?
Ready to rock.
All right, then. So let's get the show on the road on 3, 2, 1, engage. Ah, yes. Every episode should start off with a good Frankie flail.
Uh, uh,
Yeah, you just beat the rush, which is a great way of saying no one drinks anymore. We're all too sad to have fun. Don't you hate it when the pub is open and doing roadworks outside? It's practically the same thing.
it really
This is why
is.
this is why O'Brien is doing the work. It's like, yeah, it's fucking background noise. It'd be grand.
Yeah, all right.
And also that, like, I love as well that the Frankies are still in the bar because it's been well established they have a cute sense of hearing. So fucking Quark must be absolutely deafened at this stage.
I'd say he has some sort of
There we go.
earplugs or something. Oh, well, there you go. Clearly not.
And there was me chatting shit about the show, and it catches me right at the end there. Good lads. Well done. Don't fuck with the lore masters, huh? I love that they always have the kind of fancy names for things, whereas just like it is just a wrench with like a little bit of an LED stick on it. It's just like, give me the fucking spanner.
Hmm.
Lovely.
Like a spanner, yeah, stuff like that. But when he's, oh, give us a self-seating stem bolt. The fuck is that?
I'd like a coupled flange nipple, please.
Wrong show.
No, that's an actual engineering thing. Flange nipple.
Jesus Christ.
You think I'm silly, but I'm not. God love Chief O'Brien here. He is his pork belly is well stuck into those uniforms, isn't
Yeah.
it? As an Irishman, as two Irishmen with proud beer bellies, that
Yeah.
upsets me. Let it go free. Don't
Yeah.
bunch it up like that. Come
Well,
on.
you can tell for the fact that you can tell by the double chin that he
Yeah,
definitely
exactly. That man has been enjoying his bacon and cabbage dinners. What is it about the Cardassians that are just so unpalatable? It's just they don't do themselves any favors, do they?
I don't know. Like they're a horrible set of sisters, and the mother isn't much better. Oh no, sorry, Cardassian. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Look, they often get confused with each other. In fairness, one of them is a massive occupier of land and just seems to destroy everything in their sights, and the other are the Cardassians.
Yeah, true.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
That's a great line. In fairness, it's like so people are starting to like me, and I don't know how I feel about that. Do you like me, Mr. O'Brien? Nope. This Bolian is already a bit spooked about this.
Hate to disappoint you, shit. The only thing you're gonna be using that for? Shooting bullets. Empok has been abandoned so long.
You see, You lads have clearly never watched any typical ghost horror show because all of you die within the first 5 minutes. I love that both like Garrick and O'Brien just look at the rifle going, just like old times. Because of course, when we are finished this arc, because we are coming to the end of this particular dark arc, if you like, we are going to the what we are calling the conflict arc, and one of the episodes that we'll be reviewing that is the Wounded, where again we're flipping we're going back to an O'Brien, the I suppose the original O'Brien episode actually from the Next Generation, where we are seeing exactly how the Cardassian War affected him. Um, and it's a phenomenal episode. I think it's genuinely one of the most underrated in
It
the
really
Star
is.
Trek blog. So it'd be interesting to see how he appraise it with a critical eye. But yeah, it's kind of it's a nice little prelude in a sense because this is where O'Brien is now a good couple of years into it,
Yeah.
living essentially with Cardassians. Because there was a time where Ducat was on our side, but we
Mm.
don't like talking about that.
You're
Strange
you're
Metal.
you're you're looking at it's about trying to count up the years here. It's about 7 years since that episode in terms of timeline.
Yeah, we'll be about that. Yeah.
So he will have been around Cardassians a lot more. When you see him in that particular episode, he's very untrustworthy of them.
Mm.
But now living in a station that has a Cardassian on it, that they've had dealings with the Cardassians now for the last nearly 6 years,
Mm.
he's used to them.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't bother him as much now. But we'll see how he feels at the end of this episode.
Absolutely. But as well as considering he's had to work with Cardassian tech basically since day one of being on the ship, and how he hasn't wanted to kill the entire race because of how annoying their technology is beyond me. Because I'm sure that would tick me off as well. Like,
He's the only one as well in the entire quadrant that knows how to merge Bajoran, Cardassian, and Federation technology. He's literally the only one. So when he leaves at the end of the show, I'd say if Deep Space Nine fell apart.
oh god, yeah. Like I'm actually imagining it to be like a fancy island now on Bajor. Like it's a ski resort now on the on the northern peninsula.
It's about bold strategy, decisive action.
I always love and this is something that is definitely more apparent in Deep Space Nine. That every race obviously has its own games, but
Yeah.
every race seems to have an equivalent to chess.
Yeah.
It always seems to be such a universal game. Like it always is about strategy and victory above all things. You could arguably agree that Vulcans are probably not going to have a game like football, but they're almost certainly going to have something where they need to win.
Well, you look at this. So you've got what's this one called? Kotra.
Kotra, yeah.
Kotra. Then you've got is it Kalto?
Kalto, yeah, that's another one, yeah.
You know. So it's like exactly what you say there. Every race seems to have it. I'd imagine the Klingons don't, but that's just me. But
Yeah.
actually, now when you look at it like that, you see everybody just knows the Klingons for the warrior race that they are. But there was one Enterprise episode that showed us that that's not what they are. That's not all they are. There
Yeah.
are scholars, lawyers, artists.
Mm.
There are more than just a warrior race. But obviously, that didn't fit the narrative when it came to the show and the movies. So
Yeah,
that's all
exactly.
we got.
Polarity maximizers. Cardassian emblems and insignia. Priority, but if we happen to find this is a salvage operation. Not an opportunity to indulge in such.
Yeah, but Chetty, you fucking hammy bastard. I did like me O'Brien at the end. I was like, to be honest, I would have done the same myself.
Yeah. So just the thing about O'Brien, I like when he is actually in command.
Yeah.
because he's a little more laid back.
Mm,
It's not like he doesn't let them do whatever they want, but it's like they can still voice their mind, still speak.
mm,
Whereas, would people say stuff like that in front of a card? No,
mm.
you know.
It checks out as well, considering that like he is still a petty officer. He's not officially ranked as such. Like
Yeah,
we obviously know he holds the rank of lieutenant commander from his time at Enterprise, but at the very least, like he's still in terms of Starfleet, he's a petty officer, so he doesn't technically have like any kind of like authority over them. But then again, as I'm noticing here, the four lads here I think are cadets,
yeah.
so or they're crewmen, I should say. So it's not as if they're going to be pulling rank either, you know. If anything, I think actually Nog is technically the most qualified, which is hilarious to say, because he's an actual cadet, whereas the rest of them are just crewmen.
Yeah, which is weird.
It is weird. And now the spooky shit.
When it comes when it comes to Star Trek shows, you can always tell that they're post first contact when you see certain things. And Garrick wearing that particular
The
suit
spacesuit.
is it.
Ah, there we go. That's all the same corridors we're used to. Now, something seems a little bit off here.
Just a tad.
This is a tiny amount.
This is what I love about that type of music. It's great.
Mm.
Welcome to Empok. No. Thanks for having us. Take whatever you need. My house is yours. All right, listen up.
I found all these things myself. No, really, I did.
Check. Watchalong.
There is a naked gun spoof in there. It's like Bucktalk and Garrett would be nice. That's not, I think I'm more than nice. No, no, you will be nice. It's like no, no, you don't understand. Who shot once, twice, and twice shot once, once.
And
Yes,
then a random fart would have been perfect.
yeah, exactly. Well, as you all know, those Star Trek jumpsuits just keep all the gas in. You know, it's especially season one next gen. Like you ain't getting, no one's
Oh
getting.
Jesus!
Yeah.
It's at this point where obviously you'll notice some of the uniforms are one piece and
Mm,
some of the uniforms are two piece. And it was basically down to a budgetary thing as to why it was
yeah.
like that. Some of them were reused from some of the costumes from First Contact that we were talking about, and
Yes.
some of them are brand spanking new. Um, there's no way to tell from my eye anyway. There's no way to tell. There are other people who be able to go, yeah, that's new and that's from First
Mm.
Contact, wherever it may be.
I think it's always the collars that give it away for me because I mean, even when you were mentioning about Star Trek Generations, where like you'd have like say Picard in his usual kind of like get up, and then Riker is in the Voyager one because he's using Chakotay's uniform, and
Yeah,
it's clearly small
which
for
is
him
yeah,
because
it's
his
fucking crazy. Like,
feet are out here. Like I say, majority having to nick I think it's Tuvok's or Torres's I think it's Tuvok's one, and he looks out of place in it as well. So you have people who are looking like really nice in their costumes, like Data and Picard and so forth, and you have lads having to deal with fucking hand-me-downs. Like it's just
which I don't get. These movies have huge budgets,
yeah.
but yet we can't give them a
I
uniform.
I think what happened was they were meant to get new uniforms for Generations, and they were
Mm.
meant to have the kind. They were meant to be similar to yesterday's Enterprise with the high collar and a bit more of a almost like a Howie coat design on it. But it just fell through, and I think it was literally because they were doing all these different projects at the same time, and just Paramount wouldn't commit fully to the movie, and they had to. There was a lot of things scaled back actually in Generations. It was a shame, really.
Both those tubes have been
And I
activated.
think the actual Enterprise destruction like cost a lot of money special effects wise because
Yeah.
that's a big ass model that you have to destroy, and you're
It's
doing it in
actually huge. You
huge,
don't
yeah.
realize how big it is until you see it. You're like, holy fuck. It's
Mm.
bigger than a car. Like
Yeah, it's huge.
probably bigger. It's probably bigger than several cars.
And it's the first time they're doing it in widescreen. So they had to basically correct every single frame, every single shot. And that's what burned a hole into the budget as well.
Whereas now you could probably do it at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah. It's all CGI now. It's to be just make it completely
You could
easy.
have somebody in his basement do the same CGI, if not better,
Mad,
for
isn't it?
50 quid.
Yeah. Sure, look how Star Trek Picard like made the Enterprise D look like the most nimble thing possible. No, no,
But
that's not right at all.
God's sake, Nog, what did you do?
The fact that he says that with a smile is just so insidious. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
ah, yes, they were trained serial killers. What a great bunch of guys.
Murderous Carbassian bastards. Great bunch of lads.
Great bunch of lads.
Maybe they're just upset because we haven't introduced ourselves.
We should find them. Say hello.
See. This is the thing about him. I find him so hilarious because he's so cocky.
Yeah.
But then we'll see what way he actually is later on in the episode.
Station subspace transceiver was ripped out when the Cardassians evacuated.
There's a reason why these are crewmen. They're literally like these are drafted, weren't they? Like they were called up and said, "Oh yeah, I'll be in Starfleet for a while. I'll kill a few Cardassians. Oh, be grand."
We could modify the field to emit a series of cold variables. We could use the station like an old-fashioned telegraph, tap out an SOS. For the pulse to be strong enough to reach Deep Space Nine, we'd have to boost cars to the induction grid. Jen, you could house the habitat ray and bring the microfusion reactor back online. Starts off, you go with it. Octar, realign the magnetic flow field in conduit G4. Mara will watch your back. Nog and Garak, you're with me. We'll set up the signal generator, Carver Bay 4. Use your communicators as little as possible. We don't want to give away our positions.
And there's the military mindsets. And again, I think in the last 3 seasons, you really see him kick into that because we had the Section 31 subplot as well, where he had to play spy.
Now, there's the first sign of anything wrong with Garak
Yes.
as he starts to rub his hands.
Something else going on. So,
Like I think we said it before, but like and we'll say it in the review, but like how well Andrew Robinson is with subtlety. Because he's made himself learn his character inside out.
He's an absolute master of it.
Yeah. Damn those stealthy Cardassians and their shadows.
Silly Nog.
Tell ya. Nah.
She's literally aiming it right at him, like, fucking hell.
He's putting them to fucking work.
Du-du-du-du.
Dun dun dun.
It is extremely tense.
Hmm. You have to make sure that even Rosie sees what you're saying. Very important.
The turbo realizing.
Gobshite.
Tell you. I
It
think there's a reason.
automatically knows something bad's going to happen.
I think there's a reason why you're crewman, isn't it? Yeah, you failed the L Starfleet exams, didn't you? Yeah. It's gone spooked now. Oh, oh dear. That
Gobshite.
didn't go to plan.
That fall wouldn't have killed her, for fuck's sake.
And in fairness, if she landed head first onto what would be corrugated steel, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Mm.
Oh, broken neck, like it's easily done.
And there he is.
Yeah.
Focused. So shit. Still. Finish that. Don't send out a signal whenever we get off the station. What if I send Derek with you too?
Yes. Oh, please send me with. I would love to be their friends.
Then a headache and think what you want. Laurel, you'd like to shoot, but you're dying to kill Cardassian. Anything.
He says as he looks at the camera.
If you try Cardassian, don't try. You do us all a favor. That's the spirit. Why don't you come with me, Chief? Kill a few cards. Would you like to avenge their deaths? Just want to get them. The hero of Setlik 3 is still.
We haven't heard about Setlik 3 in a while.
And the fact that Garrick knew about it as well.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Like it has. I don't think it's ever been mentioned at all up to this point. So like he's only saying it just to press O'Brien's buttons. There's no reason beyond
Oh,
that.
100%, yeah. And it worked as well.
Yeah. It shouldn't.
It really shouldn't.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious just looking at Nog with this hugely oversized gun.
I know, yeah. Like the recoil itself would just fucking blast him off like. He's such a great man to for like he's one like Robert Rooney. He knows when he has the prosthetics on, so the eyes can just go crazy. And
Oh, yeah.
but I think it's the mouth for me that gets it for me. Like it's the oh Ooh, ooh. He really leans into it, you know.
Hmm.
Ooh, are they back in our pods? Probably not. Surprise, Garrick.
Ah, that's lovely.
Isn't she just? You better go. It's a very spooky episode. Correct answer was door number two.
I've always liked Cardassian weapons. There's something about them. I don't know what it is.
It kind of remind me, the shape wise, kind of reminds me of the Goa'uld weapons in Stargate. Just like kind
Mm.
of there's a serpent motif in them. I
Yeah.
quite like them.
Well, when you look at a Cardassian, it's kind of like a cobra look to them anyway, because their necks.
Yeah, I think they're Cobra or a Scorpion is how I always kind of saw it.
Mm.
Seems the unfortunate soul had been given a massive dose.
Yes, how terrible that is. What a shame. Hmm? Hmm. Doesn't suppose you've seen any blue liquid around, have you, gentlemen? I believe they call it Ketracel blue.
I'd love to stay and hypothesize all afternoon, but once I've set my mind to a task, I hate to be the. What is it?
You see, this is why Garrick is such a wonderful character because like he'll come out with lines like that every now and then.
Mm.
You know, like the other one that reminds it's that's very telling of his character is like, I'm never telling the truth. I'm always telling lies. It's even especially when I'm telling the truth. It's just a great line, like. Oh, a big fan of shadows in this episode.
Mm.
Ooh, and there's a racial slur we haven't heard in a while. What happened to that nice virtuous humanity we've loved so much?
Yeah, all right.
Oh, Aliens have very fragile necks, don't they?
Yep.
Bit of a design flaw in them. You idiot. so, so, Garrick, of course, introduces all of his tools by stabbing people with them. You should see him with the spoon. He's just dangerous. Dangerous with it. There's no life in these crewmen at all, are they?
There
They're all
really isn't.
fucking
Die
lemmings.
very easy.
Christ. I see one guy got punched through glass. The other one fell off what, a 10-foot drop. The other guy, crushed neck, stabbed a little bit. Like, fuck's sake, lads.
Uh,
Some Starfleet members have came back from the dead for several fucking times.
yeah, do you want to get over themselves, these fuckers? I tell you.
Honestly. Jesus, I tell you. You're not going to win the fucking Dominion War with people like them.
Siege of AR 558.
Any original series episode with a red shirt. And Ensign Ricky.
They knew how to dye ML red shirts.
Yep, they were just plain stupid. Stupid enough to agree on going on a mission with all the other main characters.
It's not the only explanation. Garrett could be just a murderous bastard.
I mean, we've established he is. He
Hmm.
just happy. He's just happy where he is right now. Hemming women's trousers.
Hmm.
Famously, when people are under a psychoactive substance, they're very easy to negotiate with.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
like try and tell a coke addict that they're on drugs. Yeah, never goes well.
And even the look on the Chief's face there, you're like, oh Jesus, okay.
Yeah.
He is all business now.
Oh yeah. And like I said, it is like a kind of it's a switch that's flicked in him in a sense because but that's always been the case. As I said, like with the psychoactive drug is what is Garrick's excuse. O'Brien is just trauma. Like
Yeah.
he's been down this road. He's been a soldier before. He just had to switch back into that mindset. Murder will do that to you, Garrick. Again, Naga not quite feeling the weight of the rifle there. It's flailing around up shop. Theodore has been working out the last 2 weeks. Haha, I know this one well. I believe this is called the Gauls Gambit. PC. PC. Hmm. Now, does a Frankie count as a rook or a knight? I'm not too sure.
God knows.
Yeah. Hmm. Fuck off with your chest. Hmm.
That brings out the player's true nature. I saw the look in your eyes when I took the Frankie away from you. Just one with remember.
Were a killer. Past tense. Something about come out and fight me like a man. What? Where have I heard that before from an Irish?
I don't know, something about like a tan or a black or something like that.
I
Something.
just, yeah, it's something to do with that. Like, it's just so it just seems so far away and yet so familiar. Oh, that's just harsh, isn't it?
Just a tad.
Yeah. Although it does show you that Garrick is getting quite creative with his pieces. See, look at the
Very
improvements.
decorative. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we have an audience for our little game. Yeah, I'm not the commanding officer. That delivery is great. It's like, oopsie. He is having just such a great time,
Yeah,
isn't he? Like, give that man some scenery to chew. He
yeah.
is hungry.
But obviously, what we just saw there was very deliberate. What Chief
Yes.
O'Brien just did with the phaser and tricorder.
Letting myself too much.
Ah, traditional Cardassian fighting stance. He learned a lot of those one-liners in the war, of course. You can't deliver a finishing a hammer and blow without saying the right line, you know?
He certainly got that line right.
Yeah, yeah. Learn from the best, John McClane.
Yippee-ki-yay, Cardi fucker.
I don't think he's gonna be all right. He'll have recovered.
Mm-hmm.
For a minute, because that's all we have left in this episode. We need to move on. I killed four people today.
Yeah. So,
If she's on the station, you better watch your fucking back, pal.
Julian tells me it lasts for a couple years. It could be worse. Days. Real pain. It's the way.
The very telling end to that episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm. So yeah, there we go. That's Impact Noir. Uh, Again, like they very relatively sudden ending, but like they packed in the episode as much as they could, really. Which was kind of the trademark towards the end here. Like they basically just like wrap up everything in one scene at the end, just to fill things out. But yeah, there we go. Um, in the grand scheme of things, at least O'Brien won one war with the Cardassians. It was a hollow victory in the end. He didn't actually kill them, but you know, he got the last laugh, as they say.
Yeah.
And let us never speak of this ever again. No, really, they don't mention this at all at the end of this. But in any case, so that is our episode rundown, and as we usually do, again, we're about to review the episode now momentarily, but we do have time to run through very quickly the guest stars on this episode, and thankfully we don't have that many, namely the 4 crewmen that were fed to the slaughter here, to Garrick's friendly slaughterhouse, as we call it. So we can go through them there, but I have a bonus round for you as well, Jerry, just for good measure. So the first one I'm going to start off with is Mr. Tom Hedges, who played crewman Panchetti even, who obviously was the collector of the group, if you like. Obviously, in the Next Generation, he would have been the historian who, like, oh, I'm such an expert in the year 2024. Why don't you come on over here and show me how much you know about the year? You know, he never got to that stage, thankfully, because he died. But the actor himself, Tom Hedges, obviously still going because he's only young, 59. You might know him from other shows such as LA Law, Valerie, and some movies such as Revenge of the Nerds 2, to be precise, and perhaps a couple of others there. A lot of guest roles, as you can imagine, a few blind ones, but he'll be known mostly for LA Law and Valerie in that sense. And yeah, he's a one and done in Star Trek. A lot of these guys are, so we've very little to say on that, except for thanks for being on the show and thanks for dying a terrible death. Your sacrifice has been forgotten. Next up, that's terrible, isn't it? Next up then is Margaret Jean Holden, who plays crewman Stolzoff, who again, if we're not sure about the names here, our previous one was a guy who got smashed in glass. This one fell from a high distance. So basically, 2 insurance claims straight away here. So Margaret Jean Holden here, again, also age 59, is actually a stunt woman by trade, funny enough. So that's probably why she did the big bump from the top. She's done quite a lot of shows. Mainly she's on Renegade, Wings, and she's a regular on the show Crusade, which is out around the time of Deep Space Nine as well, and also on Beastmaster as well. She's also been in a couple of movies, again, both as an actress and as a stunt woman. But in terms of being an actor, you might see her in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. You might also see her in Sweet Justice, and also in The Lost World Jurassic Park, would you believe? Fun fact. She's also in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. But again, these are either acting roles or as stunt women, so she's normally in the background of them. But like I said, regular fixture would be on the show Crusade, so you'll know her from there. Next on then is Jeffrey King, who played Amaro, who was the racist of the group. Don't think we heard you calling us spoonheads. That's not allowed. Bold, Amaro. Deserved everything you got. But yeah, he's played by Jeffrey King, and again, a few guest appearances on other TV shows, namely Quantum Leap. He would have seen on them, and LA Law and Wings as well. So again, a few from the same Rolodex there. Movies wise, not that many. He would have been in the likes of Mars Attacks and False Arrest, amongst a couple of others. But yeah, not too much to his name now, in fairness, for Jeffrey King on that one. And last of the 4 is Andy Milder, who played the Bolian Boktar, who obviously was the skittish of the group. Shockingly enough, Jerry, and I'm not going to quiz you on this because this is quite obscure, he has been in Star Trek more than once. And would you believe we've already seen him?
Right, so I recognise the voice.
Yes, the voice might give it away, yeah.
Was it Voyager?
It was Voyager.
Oh, no. Jesus. No, you're gonna have to tell me. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, like I said, I won't quiz you on it because it's a bit of a tough sell. But obviously, he's Bokta in this episode, but he's also the character Nar. Oh,
no, go on.
Okay, do you remember the Overlookers? From the episode, they were initially Tinker Tailor, Dr. Spy. But then there was also, remember the sequel to that episode, Renaissance Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the unnamed character in the background of Tinker Tailor Doctor Spy, and then in Renaissance Man he kind of stepped forward then and became his own character called Nar. So he was that episode there. But he is known also, if you technically count the video games, he is also the voice of Lieutenant Commander Brex in British Commander, and he's also Ensign Chell in Elite Force 2. So if you count the games, he makes 4 appearances in Star Trek. But that would be being a little bit generous, to be fair.
Very, very obscure.
Yes, exactly. So I think we'll leave it just as 2 for now, anyway. But either way, Andy Milder himself by trade, he'll have been in a couple of other movies and shows. He was in Armageddon as a NASA tech. He was also in Apollo 13 in a very similar role. I think he was Guido White in Apollo 13. He's also in the wonderfully named show The Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars, which apparently also had DeForest Kelly in it. So there you go. Yeah, don't ask me.
Just wow.
Yeah, I know. Guest role wise, he was also in Transformers. He was in Frost Nixon in terms of his movie roles. In TV, he's been in quite a few things. Again, as also kind of cameos like Dharma and Greg, The West Wing, Boston Legal, and he's also in the likes of NYPD Blue, Ugly Betty, and 6 Feet Under, and Parks and Rec as well. So he pops up every now and then, and he still does at times. And one of his most recent roles actually is Ensign Bolivar on the Orville.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, fun fact.
Well, look at that.
Yeah, you try and take the guy at a selfie fine and just roll him back in. So we then come to a bonus round on this guest star episode, because this is actually the first Deep Space Nine episode we've had so far that has featured Morn. Would you believe? Because I think in the other episodes, with an emissary, I think he wasn't even introduced as a character yet. And in Little Green Men, I think he's only like literally there for a couple of seconds. Same with Trials and Tribulations, and in The Visitor, wasn't really to do with him. And in The Pale Moonlight, I don't think he was even in the episode. So Morn is actually a character we haven't officially formally spoken about yet. And again, in the unlikely event that we go into a Morn specific episode, we might as well talk about him now. So a question for you, Jerry, is do you know who plays Morn?
No, genuinely don't. No.
Okay. Well, there's
no point in even guessing.
Yeah. So he's actually played by Mark Allen Shepard. No, not that Shepard.
No.
So rest assured, let me no panic. Hilarious enough, Morn is his only role.
Oh,
if you believe that. I think he appears in one other show, and that's it. But this is the only role he's ever had in TV. Is to basically be under prosthetics and sit at a bar. That is it.
Not speak.
And not speak. No.
That's the bullshit.
Hilarious enough, like he's also technically appeared in Deep Space Nine multiple times, but he'll always be out of prosthetics, and he's like, guy sitting at a bar with Bajoran makeup on, or he's a human coming off a spaceship type of thing. So he's always been floating around in those different roles. But yeah, as an actual regular, if you like, character, it's Morn. Which is, again, I think it's kind of just objectively funny. In terms of the actual of Shepard himself, his actual trade is actually as an artist. He's an impressionist painter by trade. And he's basically, in the time that he's done like different works, he has done paintings of Keanu Reeves, Julian Bashir, Jadzia Dax, and Jake Sisko, and I believe he's auctioned some of them off as well for charity. His funny enough, the obviously because he's won the prosthetics as Morn, his makeup artist that did the award, that did his get-up, earned an Emmy for it, which I think it's kind of like, I don't know if you're the actor, do you feel a bit shit about like the guy earning the award? Because obviously like he's done the majority of the work, but you have to put the fucker on. So I don't know, maybe there's an argument there, I don't know. But yeah, Shepard has done he's done a couple of other things, knocking him back. Like he's also a co-founder of what's called Plural Adult, which is a music theater group, and they've released various different CDs. One of them called hilariously "Mourn to Be Wild." So he definitely hasn't cashed in on his fame whatsoever. Um, so yeah, he's done various different kind of cameos as well. And yeah, he's done a few kind of fan produced Star Trek productions as well. So, but yeah, Morn is how he's known as, and forever shall be. And of course, if anyone's not familiar with the whole joke about Morn, why is his character never speak and all this sort of stuff, the whole joke essentially is that Morn is is basically a reference to Cheers, the famous American sitcom that's had tons of Star Trek alumni on them, like Kate Mulgrew and Kelsey Grammer and Jonathan Frakes, to name just a few. But Morn was supposed to be a piss take of John Goodman's character Norm, who always was hanging around the bar, always had he was always the end of the sketch kind of quipper. And the whole basic gag was that he'd be the same type of character who'd always be on the same spot, on the same bar every time, but never say a fucking word. But the joke was that all the other characters, like, call him a chatterbox. Like, he never shuts the fuck up, but on the show, never speaks a word.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not gonna lie, as a running gag, I think is hilarious. I think
brilliant. It is brilliant, yeah.
You know, and it's also just completely pointless, you know, kind of way. It's just a completely like little bit of it's a bit of a color, a little bit of levity in what can sometimes be, especially towards the end, quite a grim show. So, you know, it's nice to have, as many things change, some things don't, and Norm keeping his fucking mouth shut certainly stays that way. So yeah, that's it. We very little to talk about because we've no new ships to talk about. Empok Norm was just Deep Space Nine flipped, so. Yeah. Nothing else to talk about there unless you prefer Deep Space Nine horizontal. I don't personally, so we'll leave it there. So it just leaves us then to talk about the episode itself. So we're going to start reviewing it, and as we always do, we always kind of review category by category based off the rounds that we have. So let's jump in straight away with the plot. So Jerry, the premise is that Deep Space Nine is basically short of spare parts, as we've well established. They're in the Dominion War. They need as many resources as they can get, and the best option they have is to go to a derelict sister ship and scavenge it for parts. That is until, unfortunately, Garak succumbs to basically a psychoactive that turns him into a homicidal maniac, along with the other Cardassians who are now out of stasis, and hilarity ensues. As an episode, a decent pitch, and also a nice little a change in the Dominion War stuff, because a lot of the episodes now are pretty much Dominion War subplots, whereas this one you could say is actually very much like about Cardassians this time.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is. It's at this point we're only a couple of episodes away from the actual beginning of the war itself, and we're just a couple of episodes past when the Dominion finally invaded from the Gamma Quadrant. So every episode, or almost every episode, has been Dominion, and it's a constant thing. So it's nice to see something different. I don't think the Dominion was even mentioned in this episode, if I'm correct.
Yeah. No,
we didn't hear from them. Obviously, the Cardassians at this point are part of the Dominion, but it's not mentioned in the show. It's just, this is an ex-Cardassian station. We need to get certain parts from it because our parts have now started to fail. And we need a Cardassian to help us, and that's it. So you could be mistaken in thinking that it was maybe from series 3 or series 4 when the Dominion wasn't really talked about or wasn't really around that much. But no, this is literally 2 episodes away from the beginning of the actual war itself. So it was interesting to get something like this, but almost a breath of fresh air as well, because we're not talking about the same stuff over and over and over again. We get to see 2 really beloved characters going head to head essentially in this episode, and it was a nice little distraction, as I said, from everything else. It was also nice to see Nog kind of step up. Aaron Eisenberg, I believe his name was.
Eisenberg, yeah.
He stepped up to the plate in this as well, so he's particularly good in this. It was just one of those interesting stories, and like what we said, it was kind of psychological thriller, so you really didn't know what way it was going to go. You could kind of guess, so as soon as Garak touches that blue stuff, he's like, there's something wrong here. But to the extent, did you really expect him to murder one of the Starfleet officers? No. But he did, and he impaled the poor fucker, so it was a particularly gruesome death as well, which is strange for Star Trek. Even when it comes to Deep Space Nine, which is the darker of the Star Trek shows, this was kind of off kilter.
Yeah.
The fact that he was murdered, and the way it was done as well. He wasn't just shot; he was stabbed by this flux coupler or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a breath of fresh air. It was nice to see kind of a psychological thing. It was also nice to see another chief centric episode, because they are particularly good episodes. Everybody gets their own specific episodes, but I think the O'Brien episodes are really well thought out. They're really well acted, because it is Colomini. He is fantastic. So this episode definitely ticks all the boxes for me. It was something different, and it was a little bit out there for Star Trek, a little bit darker for Star Trek at the time. Obviously, we know it's a lot darker now.
Yeah.
But it was definitely different. So I don't know. I don't think I'd go with 10 on it, but I'd certainly go with 8 to a 9.
I was going to say 8 personally for me.
Okay.
Because I think it's just with the grand scheme of things, it's not a particularly relevant episode in terms of the overall story. Because again, as I said, we're gearing up for the Dominion War at this point. I think the episode after this, I think, is Call to Arms. Or certainly 2 episodes later on is Call to Arms.
2 episodes, and the next one is about Nog and Jake trying to get a baseball card for their father, who is very depressed over the Dominion.
Yeah, so that's your levity episode before we go hammer and tongs into the next seasons of stories. So yeah, it's one of those ones where it's a nice change in episode. It's like I said, it's a slightly different energy. Like with a lot of the horror-oriented episodes that Star Trek does, it's a break from tradition. It's a break from what else is going on, and it's a little bit of guilt-free fun to a certain degree, if you can consider 4 Starfleet crewmen being killed by Cardassians guilt-free fun. But I do personally. I don't know about you, Jerry. So yeah, I think 8 is a fair show, because like I said, I think it's inconsequential to a certain degree, and that's why I kind of doesn't necessarily make it a 9 or a 10 to me. It's not a groundbreaking new change or anything like that. It is just, here we go. We're going to do one of these episodes.
Certainly.
This, and I think that's fair. Next one then is the setting. And again, with a lot of these horror episodes that we've done, it can live or die based off how it's set, in terms of how does the show look, how does it feel as well? Because again, we've had these conversations before where when resources are tight and you're trying to make things feel a certain way, you have to be creative. So obviously, these are the same sets as we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
Much like with say Genesis, which we talked about with the Enterprise D, they've had to basically destroy their own sets to make it look different, and this is the kind of same thing here. Overall, Jerry, would you say they've done enough to get you across the line here?
I think so, and I'll tell you why. When you compare something like Deep Space Nine or Empok Nor to the Enterprise D, there's a big difference. The Enterprise D would have had to been really trashed, really trashed, whereas Deep Space Nine is already a dark show, and I'm not talking about just the subplots or the plots or whatever about it, but it's already a dark show. This is when you first see Deep Space Nine in Emissary, it's in absolute bits.
Yeah,
there's things broken, there's gas coming out, there's sparks, there's lights not working, the sonic showers aren't working, they have no beds, replicators aren't even working. So it is a very dark show, and I know by this point it is being cleaned up. And, it's great to see a nice, clean, fresh Deep Space Nine in the show. But then, as soon as you see this, it brings you right back to that very first episode. So there is a nostalgia feel to this. And I think as well that comparing this again to the Enterprise or even any other starship, this is uniquely, it's unique in the sense that it's already dark, but when you darken it down, it is very much a horror feel to it. All you have to do is just all they had to do was put a couple of boxes on the promenade, turn the lights off, and instant horror, instant horror. So it is absolutely unique. You didn't have to have new sets for this. You really didn't. There was a couple of new things. We had the stasis chambers and the Kolto set and stuff like that. But in terms of this, Deep Space Nine is uniquely suited for this type of episode, because all you have to do is turn the lights off and it looks amazing. There's an episode where a Dominion strike force attacks the station and destroys Upper Pylon 3. So all you had to do was to create a bit of clutter, a few sparks, a bit of smoke, and you think that place has gone to hell. So this is why it's unique. It's all you have to do is those little things, and Deep Space Nine looks as shit as the first day they landed on it. So they absolutely used the set to their advantage, because Deep Space Nine is already dark anyway. So, like the previous one, I'd go with an 8 with this one as well.
Yeah, 8 was where I was going with it, because when I was looking back at the episode, I was trying to think to myself, when's the last time they've had to do something like this?
Yeah.
Where they have to be creative with the sets they have to make it look different. And do you remember the episode? I think it was, I can't remember the name of it now off the top of my head, but it was well before Deep Space Nine. It was like a flashback episode. I think it was with Odo. It was to do with Odo's guilt of being in charge for the first time, and he wrongfully Bajorans, and they are executed. So I'm looking back to how that episode is comes across, and the biggest thing that they do to make it feel different is fencing, and the and smoke. So they make it very like misty and murky, and obviously they put like in between of like, you know, having a lot of gas machines to do the job, but they also put like a gray filter over the camera, and not black and white. Yeah, it's enough to say, okay, this looks totally different to what it is. Now they can't do that with this episode, because this one's obviously more of it's a manhunt episode. So this is where they're using shadow and silhouette to their advantage. And certain points I gave in that go to effects. So we'll talk about that later on. Yeah. But yeah, I think setting overall, it's enough, and it's a
100%. Yeah,
I think
definitely.
So. Okay, next up then is the writing. And I have to say, the writing in this episode was quite interesting to me, because they had to obviously expire a lot of energy to get over why they're going to a scissor ship that they didn't really mention up to this point. You know, like we hear a lot of D69 or Terok Nor, as it used to be called way back when, but Empok Nor was just around the corner. He didn't fucking mention that, you know, kind of way. So now they have to get us to buy into the fact that there is a sister ship that's so derelict that no one's touched it in X amount of years. So okay, this is why you're doing that. Fair enough, fair point. Then you have to go, okay, we need this, and this, and build up the plot enough to say, okay, we split up and we go again from there. So the first act is essentially preamble and build up, and away we go to the races. Act 2 and Act 3 is where we really drill down on what's actually going on, with Garrick slowly going insane, O'Brien going back into soldier mode, and Act 3 is the culmination to that, and then the final scene where essentially the two of them kind of like come to an almost a respectful understanding of, I would have killed you, you would have killed me, it was war. You know, and that was a lovely little dynamic at the end. And I'm thinking to myself, how do I balance that out between, say, not necessarily negative writing, but necessary writing? Like, you have to, like, you need to get the audience on board here. You can't just jump onto oh, by the way, here's the sister ship Empok Nor. Don't ask questions. You know, we're at the stage now we have to explain everything. So
I think, personally, for me, I think they can be forgiven for the, there's a sister station to Deep Space Nine. It's only around the corner. Let's go and get the part. You can be forgiven for that, because at the end of the day, Deep Space Nine is not the only Cardassian-built station in the entire quadrant. Of course, it's not. There's going to be many different stations all across the Cardassian Empire. So they can absolutely be forgiven for that, for the fact that they gave us an episode of this caliber that pitted Chief O'Brien against Garrick. And by that I mean every single little intrinsic thing that happened in this came back to the right. Every little conversation, every little movement, every little thing. Now obviously a lot of that came from the likes of Garrick and Chief O'Brien.
Yeah.
But it's down to the writing. And for me, this was one of the highlights for this episode, because the writing was that good. Because they brought in Setlik Tree. They brought in the fact that let's go kill some Cardis. You know, this is exactly the type of thing. This was written by somebody who knew the assignment. This was written by somebody who had known exactly what previous episodes the Chief had been in, exactly his history. They knew all about the wounded and everything to do with that. About, you know, he doesn't like Cardassians, but he tolerates them and he gets on with it because it's his job. He has to do it. And then the just everything to do with Garrick in this episode. So I would absolutely say it met the assignment. They really knew exactly what they're doing. I'd go as high as a 10 with this. I really, really would, because I would forgive them for the Empok North stuff, just for the simple fact is, yes, there are going to be stations everywhere, and then it's explained at the start exactly why this was abandoned, because it's in an area that it is no longer strategically of value to the Cardassians. So they were like, well, fuck, we'll just leave it behind, because they're kind of concentrating around their own borders with now the fact that they have this massive Dominion fleet protecting them. And they don't give a shit about this one Cardassian station that is flying listless through the galaxy, so it can just stay there.
On,
yeah, so they needed to be able to repair something for Deep Space Nine, and then obviously when it comes to this, they're able to go, okay, well, we might use this again in the future. If the budget isn't quite what it is for season 6, season 7, we can always revisit it, because it's Deep Space Nine. Just rename it Empok North, so it's fine. Exactly. So they can be absolutely forgiven for their little flaws in it, because I thought the writing was fantastic. I'd go as high as a 10. I have a feeling you're not going as high as a 10, but we'll see.
I was going to say 9. So if we meet in the middle, that gives us a 9.5.
Well, if we go 9.5, I'm happy enough with that. Absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah, because like I said, I think because as you were saying there, I think what really kind of like really impressed me at the end was the fact that like Garak was pushing O'Brien's buttons with stuff that we knew about. And stuff that Garak shouldn't know about, but we know Garak is an information merchant. He will learn. If he wants to get under people's skin, he will know everything about them. He will get the intel that's required, because he's done that before in the show. That has been well established about his espionage skill. He's only a tailor by name. He's not actually there to fucking to do your suit jacket for you. Like, he's there as a strategic resource and anything else. So yeah, I think 9.5 is fair enough.
Yeah.
Next up then is the acting. Again, for me, this is a two-person show. The four red shirts, they get bumped off fairly quickly, and I take a little bit of fizz off the show for me. And I do think Nog, not to say Aaron Eisenberg himself, because that's not what I mean, but Nog himself is outclassed by O'Brien and Garak.
100%, yes.
He's a kind of an unwilling party in this, which is grand, because at the start of the episode, he's buzzing. He's excited to be on this away assignment. He's holding his plasma rifle. He's playing little soldier here. And in a way, when it comes to characters, I'm going to refer back to Nog here on this one. But for me, acting-wise, this is an Andrew Robinson classic for me.
100%.
Absolutely fucking phenomenal work.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jerry, I think being the actor between us, you'll know more than I would. So take it away.
When it comes to this, obviously this is a O'Brien episode, and that's essentially what it is. It's not a Garak episode. This is an O'Brien episode that heavily features Garak. Now, we can't take away anything from Colm Meaney here, because Colm Meaney was fantastic in it. He again knew the assignment, knew exactly going in. And the one thing I will actually call back to is he was the chief for about 60% of this episode. Even when the Cardassians were there and they were killing things, he was still the chief. But when it came to that talk in the corridor with Nog, and his facial expression changes.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we'll have to kill him. And he was instantly, he wasn't Chief O'Brien anymore. He was Soldier O'Brien. And he was ready to kill Garak. And it was just that nice, subtle little thing. So, this was Colm Meaney certainly at his best, but there was no outclassing Andrew Robinson in this episode. Not even an iota. You can take up every single other person in this episode, including Avery Brooks and Renee Auberjonois at the start. You could have piled them all together and they wouldn't even come close to Andrew Robinson in this episode, because this is the type of episode that Andrew Robinson excels at, because this is not negotiator Garak, this is not Taylor Garak, this is not somebody who, we need some codes for you to get through to Obsidian Order, whatever. This is the devious spy-like Section 31 like Garak. This is exactly, this is the, I won't say creepy, it's certainly, but he's able to, he's almost a shapeshifter when it comes to this episode, because he is absolutely fantastic here. There is, from everything from the talk and the runabout to playing Calto to fiddling, doing this, fiddling with his hands and then scratching, and then the whole demeanor changes, and then obviously they sprayed him so the sweat is running down him, and he's He's almost feral at that point.
Irritable. Yeah.
Irritable, feral. He then goes and he does the Calto tin and he goads Chief O'Brien. It is a masterclass of acting. It is a masterclass for Andrew Robinson. And I will not accept anything lower than a 10 for this category. It's as simple as that. Just for his performance alone, a 10.
I will agree with you on the 10 because I think, as I said, like it's a two-man show.
I wasn't giving you a choice.
No, I know you weren't. That's why I'm agreeing with you. This is your category. I'm not gonna disagree with you on this one. But no, but this is an episode where you live and die by the actors. You know, if you had to, shall we say, pay actors on this one, like, you know, that don't understand the assignment. Let's say that don't understand their characters inside out. This is the episode that would be an absolute disaster. Like, I'm thinking of when like Voyager and Enterprise and Discovery do similar episodes like this, where they try and delve into a bit of past history and stuff. But especially in new Trek stuff, they don't establish the characters well enough for it to work. Now, that is a symptom of having less episodes to play with, of course.
Exactly,
we understand that and respect that, and there's only so much you can do.
I think Deep Space Nine was unique for this because they delved so much into their characters that if they, by this point, which is the fifth season, they didn't know the character by now, they were never going to know the character. So I 100% agree with you there. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly how to do it. And this was perfect.
But it's also to do with the actors, you know, because we're going to use Discovery as a comparison there. One character that comes to mind is Saru from that show, but the reason why his character works so well and why you sympathize with him so much is because, especially when you delve into the Kelpians and how they were like the prey and predator kind of like relationship there. But a lot of that is carried by the actor himself, Doug Jones.
Yeah,
you know. And he is a master at playing these type of, as it were, monsters, because he's done that his entire career. He's used to being the freak in the room, if you like, you know, to the extent where some of his co-workers didn't even realize he was fucking Pinhead or whatever, you know. They didn't know that. So he's there walking in as a lovely kind of like, you know, wholesome guy. He's like, oh, hi, my name is Doug. He's like, who are you? I'm the main villain. He's like, oh shit, didn't notice you, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah. But he's so earnest in his performance that you buy into it. And Andrew Robinson is the same way for him, because he's so earnest and very technical with his performance. Like, he's an actor's actor is the way I describe him. And anyone who's worked with him will say the same thing, where he drills down to the basic components of his character and builds it up. He has a character bible for Garak, and he's done that with all of his work. Even back when he was in Dirty Harry as Scorpio, he had a character bible for him in one fucking movie. He's the villain of the piece. He gets shot at the end. The end. Fucking done. He didn't have to do that, but he still did. That is the way he functions. That is the way he does his work. Colomini, I think, has the luxury of being such a legacy character, being in the show so much that he has so much layers upon layers upon layers to build on, that he knows this character inside out, you know, kind of way. Like, he's not going to get mixed up between him and fucking, like, Sharon Curry's dad. It's not going to happen. You know what I mean? He knows what he's doing, you know, so he's okay.
But he's not going to go up to Garak and go, snip, snip.
Yeah. I mean, I wish he could have, to be honest. It would add a lot to the show, but no, that's what I mean. So, but the fact that, like, even in this very extreme situation, the two of these characters found what could be described as common ground. And again, we'll get back to that in the characters, because I think that's where we can drill into that section. Next up then is the action sequence category, and a good category for this. I'll be honest, because we had a fist fight, we had some combat, we had some violence, to say the least. But another key factor there is we had tension. We had a lot of tension in this episode, because like I said, we're not really like, it's again looking for a comparison in Star Trek in the Enterprise third season when they're in the Expanse, and the ship is being torn apart limb from limb. Every episode has a layer of tension because they're establishing, like, you know, everyone's filthy with dirt, and their overalls are torn. They've got cuts and bruises all over them. So the actors are naturally get into position and into their mindsets because they just look at them. They're not in the right state of minds, you know. So it's very easy for them to kick into gear here, and have a naturally tense like version of the episode that they would do. There's only like one or two levity episodes in that run, and a lot of them are like little timey-wimey shits that they're doing, you know. It's similar here in DS9 where they just immediately flick into gear and go, all right, there's a national tension here because we're on an abandoned version of Deep Space Nine. And even the episode itself establishes straight off there are homicidal Cardassians on this ship. These guys are fucked. And we were starting from there. So I think that kind of just keeps the kind of baseline of tension versus action all the way up, especially in the third act where Garak is essentially goading O'Brien into a fight. So overall, I think action was done really, really well here. So I'm flickering between an 8 or a 9 for me personally. Possibly more towards 8 personally.
I tell you what, let's meet in the middle there, and we'll go 8.5.
8.5. Okay.
I thought again, it's like that. What you were saying, the tension there, and it's exactly how we described it at the start. It's a psychological thriller, essentially what it is, because you don't really know where it's going to go, especially at the start. You really don't. When you first hear of the possibility of Cardassians being on the station and them being murderous fuckers, even then you don't really realize that Garak is actually going to turn into one of them. So you do have that tension. It is a thriller because you don't know what's going to go. But yeah, so I'd go about an 8.5 because you have that tension. You have the little bits of, as we'll say, violence. Garak hiding in one of the chambers and killing one of the Cardassians. Then he kills the other Cardassian who has just stood on Amaro's Machete's, whatever his bloody name was, the Bolian's neck. And the thing is, again, this was different for Star Trek because he's choking him, and then you can hear oh, that's the neck broke, so he's fucking dead now. And then the hanging of the bodies as well on the promenade when Chief O'Brien was going to meet Garak. So it really, really was a tense episode with just enough action to keep it going, but not only that, to make it interesting. And it also proved as well that, yes, okay, Chief O'Brien went into the mindset of a soldier, but he wasn't one anymore because he got his ass handed to him by Garak. The only reason he won is because he had an explosive. So it is, and because he's an engineer. So yeah, I'll go an 8.5.
Fair enough with that then. So, Grant, next up then is the effects, and as I think we mentioned then when we were talking about the setting, was that obviously when you're doing something like this, lives and dies by what you do with the scenes and how you make it work. So again, these are all kind of audio effects, visual effects, all these different things, and the kind of biggest takeaway for me is it's all darkness, it's all shadows and silhouettes and stuff like this, and that's kind of it really for this episode for me. I think if it was a different show, there would have been a lot more viscera and gore, and depending on your point of view, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, I think is entirely up to your taste. For what it's worth, I think Amaro's death being a stabbing and the rest of them all being implied to be gruesome enough, I think is enough for me personally, especially at this kind of, like we don't point in insulting the intelligence of the audience. Like if they're dead, we'll take your word for it in a sense. We don't need to see broken bones or necks or whatever. And again, New Trek will do that anyway because they have the budget for it and they have the age limit now, so fucking use it. But for this point in time, it's fine. We kind of know where you're going with this. Yeah. So, overall, I don't think they did anything particularly unique in this episode. Is what I would say is they did enough to get the point across. Because, like I said, this isn't a blockbuster episode in terms of budget. This is a let's wreck the set to make it work and let the actors do the acting. And let the writers do the writing, and we'll just do enough. So for me personally, I'm looking at a 6 to a 7. Competent job, but nothing outstanding.
I think I'd agree with you there. Let's go with 7 though. Because even though they didn't do much, it was right. Everything fit. Like even look at the scene where Nog is walking around going, thinking he's a big soldier and like a big tough guy. Little does he know, in the shadow directly behind him is a murderous fucking Cardassian that he doesn't even see. And that's the subtle little things that this episode did. All they needed to do was have a box and shadow, and that was it. And it was enough. It was right. Now, we couldn't go a 10 because it didn't have like the flair of like a call to arms, the graphics and stuff like that. But it was enough to, again, tension, terror in those circumstances. There were some slight jump scares as well. So yeah, I'd absolutely we'd give it a 7, I'd say.
Okay, grand. And then we come to another one of your favorite categories, Jerry, the score. And again, I think this one has a lot of positives for me in this one as well.
Yeah, this for me now, this cannot be ranked in any way low or even medium. This is a top class episode. There are not. I'm not, I'd say every season there's a couple of episodes that have really good scores, and then the majority of the episodes are basically not the same but similar.
Hmm.
This is not one of those. This is an episode where they were like, okay, we're going to put a bit of money into this part because it was almost horror like in the music, very very high tense music, and then low bits, and then it's quiet, and then loud. I'm like, oh, this ticked all the boxes for me. It was very much that without that music, it would have seemed still as kind of tense, but without that, with that music, it just gave it that sense of almost urgency. That like it's kind of like, oh Jesus, look behind you, type of thing. It's kind of looking at old school 70s, 80s horror, whereas the music it's just in the background, and then boom, it's there, and you're like, oh yeah, give it to me. So this to me has to be a 10 because it was that good. The score is that good. Not every episode of Deep Space Nine has a unique score like this. There's a couple of episodes, like in 2 episodes after this one, you've got one of the best say villain scores in all of Star Trek in 2 episodes. So obviously this season you were like, okay, let's get the orchestra in, let's get them doing their fucking job here, because this was they cooked with this episode. Absolutely, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think a 10, as I said, I think they didn't make it do anything wrong in this episode is the best way to describe it. They kept the tension going through in audio form, and they were quiet when they needed to be quiet. And I think we always say that as well. Sometimes what's very important as well is letting a scene breathe by its own merits.
Yeah.
And yeah, even for like the original, like the initial like scenes of the episode don't really matter here because they're just preamble and setting. It's when it actually gets into brass tacks is where this actually matters. I'd say probably the only thing I could say is it's probably missing a kind of a signature in terms of score, because like Yesterday Enterprise has the swell when the fire hits, or In the Pale Moonlight has that kind of that shrill little violin as Cisco has his monologue. I'd say it's just missing a signature. It's missing something that says that's the Empok Nor music, or even with The Way of the Warrior, like that is it's the drums of the Klingons arriving, or with Call to Arms next few episodes in, Tears of the Prophets. When you think of the episode Tears of the Prophets, you hear the music. You hear it's the
100%, yeah,
and get
100%.
a choir kind of like the somber choir in the background. So that's what I'm saying with that. I'm still happy to give it a 10 because I think, as I said, they did everything without using a kind of a unique little beat for their score. They perfectly matched the pace of the episode and matched the tone of it. So I think I'll agree with you on 10 on that one. Next up then is scene, and overall, I don't think there are any like outstanding scenes in this episode. Nothing memorable to be kind of plucked out of the episode and kind of taken in a vacuum. But everything worked.
Yeah.
Again, I have the same kind of opinion of this I do with the effects. Competent, but not remarkable. Nothing like distinctive to say, yes, that's the episode. That's the scene of this episode.
Yeah.
So overall, I'm very happy with it. Overall, I think everything kind of worked. Again, forgiving the opening kind of bars of the episode, having to frame everything. I'm gonna go with a 7 personally because I can't really extract much out of it from here.
I would agree. I would agree with you with the 7. For me, as I say, it got the job done. It was competent. I think if I was to say a particular scene that I liked, it was Andrew Robinson's monologue when he finds the culture board. So that to me would be like the standout scene. I wouldn't even say that the scene with them on the promenade is a standout scene because it's not. It's that it's him talking about being a warrior and fighting, and this board represents our situation and how what are your tactics, what are my tactics. So it's his monologue for me. But no, I think I'd agree with you there. I think I'd go with a 7 on that. I don't care. I couldn't go any higher on that, but I certainly wouldn't go lower on it because, as you said, they met all expectations, but they didn't exceed them. So that's the way I would look at it.
like I said, there's no bad scenes in particular because
No.
every scene had a function. Every scene deserved to be there in a sense because everything in Act One was the framing and set up, and Act Two and Three is where the juicy bits are. So even in the pacing of the episode, it works fine.
Yeah.
So then we come to character, and I think this is the episode. This is the category that intrigues me the most a little bit because again, accepting that, the four kind of red shirts are there to be killed off. Essentially, they serve absolutely no purpose outside of that. And again, everyone else in between, the likes of your Quarks and Cisco's, all there for framing. Doesn't matter, right? This is not about them. This is about three characters in particular, Garrick, O'Brien, and Nog. And I'm actually going to use Nog as my top character in this category, if you'll indulge me for a moment, because we've established Garrick as being the kind of duplicitous, obviously two-faced, but he's on our side type of character in a sense. Where if he was still in the Obsidian Order, we would be treating him like Wayun or Ducat and go, "Fucking Garrick! Oh, I want to kill him. I need to get rid of him." You know, he's such a thorn in our side. But the difference is he's on this side of the border, if you like. He's the equivalent of, say, a Russian spy in the American camp, you know, kind of way during the Cold War. He is someone who's so crucial to the operation, who gives you those important, that he is that kind of line of communication, or was at the very least, but isn't not anymore, and he's exiled, you know. So his character is, a lot of it, especially in different episodes, is him trying to, like, you know, like, he can't necessarily, he's still proud of being a Cardassian, but as we've established in episodes we'll be reviewing soon, like Duet, there's very little to be proud of, you know. But you can still be, in the same way that someone can be a Russian national, but not necessarily be a fan of Putin. You can be proud of being of your of where you came from and so forth, but you can still recognize that this man who's in authority he doesn't speak for me, you know. And that's something that they explore a good bit with the Garrick episodes and with the Cat episodes to a certain degree, because he's kind of the, if you like, he's the KBG side, the KGB side of the conversation, if you know what I mean, just to use as a metaphor. Whereas with O'Brien has the luxury of being in the Next Generation and have established his backstory already of being the transporter guy, of being the con. He's the everyman. He's been there doing every other fucking job, but he's also been a soldier. And he's also been in the trenches. He has fought Cardassians before, but the difference with him is he has moved on. You know, we established in The Wounded that he has healed from that. It was a long, long time ago, and just seeing Cardassians have opened up a few scars. But he's professional enough, he's composed enough, he is emotionally intelligent enough to say, listen, it was war. We all did things that we weren't proud of, but we need to move on for the sake of everyone else. And again, he at this stage now, he has a family, he has a child. He's not in the mood to be fucking picking fights anymore, you know? Then he ends up on a Cardassian spaceship, which is his sole responsibility to fix, and to much to the dismay of Keiko and his kids. So we've already established those two. Nog is the one I want to focus on here, because there's one scene that I think we've all slept on a little bit, and it is when he arrives in the shuttle with the big plasma rifle in his hands, and he's like a kid at Christmas after getting a new bicycle. He's there holding his plasma rifle, buzzing to go on an away trip. He's going, yes, come on guys, let's go and find some things, you know. That's the first time he's really been in a combat situation, where he's really been in a life-threatening thing. Like, a lot of the stuff with Nog had been kind of like, you know, small fry in a sense. He was in the middle of a war zone here. He was in a life and death situation in this moment. And while he was playing, if you like, boy soldier, he was going up against two actual soldiers and people who have killed for their cause, who've been on the opposite sides and have killed the opposite side, you know. So he's caught in the middle of it, and he is the kind of the, if you like, the little balancing act for Garrick and O'Brien here. So in a way, I would have nice to have got a bit of like Nog's perspective at the end of the episode, because I think he's the character that you really want to see the episode through, if you know what I mean. So if there's one thing I might say, not say about the writing, but through the framing of the episode, it would be nice to get Nog's perspective on how that played out. But as you said, this is more about O'Brien and to a lesser extent Garrick.
I argue that we do get his perspective, just not in this episode.
Not in this episode, yeah, exactly.
Not in this episode. Yeah. So I think that will come with the next category, which is the consequences. But you know what? I think I'm going to agree with you here, because like that, he has been an engineer. He's been working at Deep Space Nine. He's been working his ass off. You know, he's doing everything that they're asking him to do, and he's being commended for it. And it's the very first time that he has been selected for something like this. You know, he's so grateful to the chief. You know, like he's standing there so proud with his gun, thinking, "Oh well, I'm probably not going to use this, but fuck, I'm bringing it anyway." And then realize, wow, well, this is a real, it's a real life situation. This is not a simulation. This is not a training mission. This is real life. This I could be killed here, and he was brilliant. And Aaron Eisenberg, when it came to him in Deep Space Nine, that he was one of the finest actors on it.
Yeah.
Bar none. He really, really was. But I think he's so underrated in the show. So many times he's been overlooked. And that's not just because of his height. That's just because of the sheer heavyweights that he's on screen with. Like a lot of the time when he's on screen with the likes of Cisco, with the likes of Worf and Jadzia, even his uncle, and Odo, he's so good, but he's in a situation where he's in with these heavyweights and he just gets overlooked. But when we look back on it now, we realize just how good he was. Sadly, he's no longer with us, but his legacy will live with this show. And you just realize just how good he was by watching these types of episodes. There's this episode, there's the next Empok Nora episode that he features heavily on, and you can see the difference between Nog now and Nog then. And we're talking, you're talking, it's only about a year. So much happens in that year to create a different person. And he is a very different person. He's more confident of himself, more confident on his abilities. So, more confident in everything that he does. But yeah, it's a comedy episode, but you see how different he is. So it really is great. So I'm going to agree with you. I think for me, he would be certainly a standout on this, just for that particular scene, and even the scene where he's going around going,
yeah,
nobody there, because if they were there, I'd have killed them.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, clearly you wouldn't have, but yeah, I absolutely. But the thing is, how do we score him?
Well, here's what I was going to say. Like again, just on that point about how where Nog ends up going. If you're never sure about Aaron Eisenberg's acting here, it's only a paper moon. Watch that episode and come back to me on that one, because that's where you see Aaron Eisenberg in his prime. And I'm actually scoring this a 10 because this whole argument was just about Nog. Yeah. I didn't even mention Garrick or O'Brien.
Yeah, but we didn't need to. That's just it. If you were to judge it by the two of those alone, it's a 10. But we're not judging it, though. We're actually judging it on the person that's been overlooked, and overlooked for the wrong reasons. So you know what? I absolutely agree. 10. Yeah,
because like I said, we know Garrick at this stage. This is just fleshing it out more. And with O'Brien, it's essentially a callback to the Wounded and just bringing that up again. And just as I said, with the switch was when those crewmen are dead and Garrick is the target, and he just switches from being engineer to soldier and soldier back to engineer. And it's a small thing. If you weren't looking at it, you'd be forgiven of thinking like Colomini was acting a bit wooden or not. It's not. It is a mode. It is just it's a soldier mentality that you'd only get from past combats. Not that we know, of course, we're a peace-loving people here in Nerds of Rust, but this is what we think. This is what we assume, for the very least, anyway. So yeah, I think top marks in the character department. Everyone here was on their marks. Everyone knew how to play it and how they would be played going forward as well. Yeah. Which brings me on to the consequences. Now, Jerry, I'd be intrigued to see what you think of this, because I might be a bit controversial with my consequences here.
Right. Okay. Well, let me. I'll go first with this, and then we'll go to you. To me, there's a number of different consequences. There's the obvious one, and it's the one that is actually less thought about with this episode, is that they went to get a part to fix Deep Space Nine. They fixed Deep Space Nine, and Deep Space Nine was ready for the Dominion attack. Had they not had this part, Deep Space Nine wouldn't have been ready, and either would have been destroyed or taken over by the Dominion quicker. Cisco could have been killed, and the rest of them there. So those are the consequences. But the thing is, in the grand scheme of things, it's minor. They're minor consequences. You then look at other things. So let's take Nog, for instance. This was in some way the making of Nog. as an officer. Because when you see down the line, and it's only 4 episodes away, he has learned just from this one episode, just from this one experience, he has learned how to deal with anybody, and especially how to deal with Garrick. Because he says he's walking along with Garrick. They're trapped on a moon somewhere after being on a deadly mission. They're walking along, and he's scanning with his tricorder, but yet he doesn't allow Garrick to go behind him. It's either beside him or ahead of him. And he's like, is this because of that, that unsettled thing that happened last year? He said, yes. He said, I'll never turn my back on you again. So you'll either be beside me or in front of me. I'll never turn my back on you again. And even Garrick is like, we'll make an officer out of you, yeah. So because Garrick respected that. He wasn't upset about it. It didn't piss him off. He was like, you know what? We'll make an officer out of you, yeah. So that's exactly the type of thing. So that's a major consequence, because that it directly leads into Nog becoming a better officer, Nog becoming a better person, and then the fact that he goes from this point all the way. So this point and 2 seasons more, he's already a lieutenant. Yeah. I've never seen anybody rise quicker than Nog in Starfleet. I'll tell you that. He went from ensign. Cadet to ensign and lieutenant in 2 years. That's fucking fantastic. So those are consequences there. You then look at this, is that this to me is a parallel, and it's a parallel, mirror, parallel, whatever way you want to say it, between this and the Diaz cast. So basically, you had something happen in the Diaz cast where Odo was tortured by Garrick.
Yeah.
He was tortured by Garrick, and then Odo reveals that all he wants is to go home and be with the Founders, to be in the Great Link, and that's all he wants. And that's the only bit of information Garrick was ever able to get out of him. And then they saved each other at the end of the episode when they go back to the runabout, and the Defiant saves them. But even after that, then they have the conversation. And there's a mutual respect between them, to the point where they're going and they're having dinner or lunch with each other, and they're chatting, and they become social, become friends. And that's essentially what happens with this episode as well. Garrick and Chief O'Brien were never friends before this. And even afterward, they were never really friends, but there was very much that mutual respect between them, because they had been adversaries in this, and they were equal. There was no one higher than the other. They were equal in this, and Chief O'Brien came on top. So it's that mutual respect between them, and that mutual respect continued all the way to the end of the war, all the way to the end of the show, and it was always there. They had friendly conversations, they worked together, stuff like that. So those are the consequences. But the fact that there's a lot of them, there's no one huge consequence of like Q who, whereas Q introduced the Enterprise to the Borg, and then that then sets up Best of Both Worlds and beyond with First Contact and all the Borg and Voyager and this, that, and the other. So there's no one major thing apart from the fact that they fixed Deep Space Nine. But for me, these are all small little consequences that make up bigger things along the way. So I'm eager to hear what you think before I score it.
Yeah. Well, I think the ones you raised there now were things that I think I didn't really factor into my kind of like gauge of it. The one kind of takeaway I had really, and again, this is a bit of a symptom, or rather a bit of a problem with the last scene just being so snappy, and it's like, oh, and everything's fine again. Now, Star Trek does this all the time. They always do it's grand, last scene since the original series, where they were actually built on those fucking scenes.
Yeah.
Except for, like, say, City on the Edge of Forever, that deliberately didn't have it because things were definitely not okay there.
No, like in that original series, you could have had an entire fleet of 10,000 starships be destroyed by a single Borg cube, and that last scene would have been, sure, lads, come on, it's grand. Let's go and we'll have a drink and we'll find some women. Come on, we'll be fine.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's nice and happy and jolly, and the music is up tempo and the whole lot. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from there. Yeah.
The biggest takeaway I had from it was basically that they essentially kind of hand waved away that Garrick murdered, he didn't particularly murder, but he murdered a crewman on Deep Space Nine. He did straight up murder Amaro. Like, that was a straight up death. Like, he killed him. He killed that guy. And like I said, you could say like he was subject to the psychoactive and stuff like that. And for me, I think you're letting him off, you let Garrick off a little bit too lightly there. But the reason they did was because in the next few episodes, he's very, very integral to what happens next. And you can't just throw him in the brig. So it's a little bit of a conceit for Bashir to go, oh well, he was under control of the drugs. He had no control over what he was doing. He's clearly fine. He's not homicidal at all. No, he is fucking homicidal. Like, like we've established. Like, you even say in the dialogue that like it brought out a bit of a personality that he didn't like. So yes, that part of him is there.
Yeah.
So you just gonna let him away with killing a crewman just for the sake of like, well, look, he's more important to us where he is now rather than being in prison or whatever else they do, excommunicated, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a bit iffy for me personally. That was the one kind of blemish I was thinking, like, you know, even at the very least, I think he'd get at least a bit of a scolding from Cisco of like, don't kill my crew members, you naughty boy. None of that. It was just like, do you know what? He was on meth. And lads, sure, haven't we all been a bit mad on meth every now and then?
True.
You know,
True.
that's a bit soft for me. You know,
before you continue with your point, I just want to point something out. All he got a year previous to this, all he got was 6 months for the attempted genocide of the founders.
Yeah.
And all he got was 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't really going to get anything for killing one crew member.
No, but I think that's the comment overall. Yeah, like I do understand that, like especially with the creator of DS9, they were establishing that they're not the ethical not the ethical beasts that the Next Generation and the Enterprise are. Because if someone killed like a member of like Picard's crew, even if it was someone who Picard definitely never heard of, because there's a fucking 1100 of the bastards on the Enterprise. It was the point of the matter. Don't kill my crew member. You don't be. Yeah. You're a murderer. Get off my ship. And do you know what? Actually, Voyager is a great example of this, right? With Solus. Was it Solus? I can't remember his name. There was the serial killer that was on board Voyager.
Jesus. He was played by Chucky, essentially.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember his name now.
Was it Sona? So something anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's someone like that.
Jonathan, are you trying to immerse yourself in this episode now with what you're happening here?
No, it's just that I'm in darkness. Surprise. I'm just trying to get my Andrew Robinson crazy eyes going here. But no, I think it's basically he was the serial killer who was on Voyager, and the thing with that is. They locked him up. They straight up locked him up. They said, "Listen, we cannot take a risk here with this guy. He is going to kill us. He is going to. He is a serial killer. He is going to keep going until we're all eradicated, essentially." And you know, even with the very risk of having these people, you know, any one of these kind of people like running amok, they can't take the risk. It's not going to happen. You know, so. With Garrick, I think there's a bit of a conceit being made to keep Garrick on the show and to keep Garrick being useful, because, as I said, if there was any consequences for the stuff that he actually did, it would have been mentioned. It would have been done, you know. So I think there is a little bit of horseplay going on there in that sense, and I think it does take just a little bit away from the consequences of this. But I think the points you made, though, I think they do kind of outweigh that little issue I have personally. Because that's not just about this episode. This is generally the way Garrick is written. He's literally led away with murder multiple times, you know. But I said it's expected of him. He is a duplicitous character, you know. That's just the way he is. So again, depending on how you feel about that, you know, maybe they should have been more of a problem with it. But that's just me personally, you know. See what you think about that yourself. But score wise. Yeah, I'm not too sure, because I think that it depends on how much we outweigh my negative towards your positives. So,
well, I think I had more positives, whereas you had
more positives,
one negative. Now, the thing is, it is well established in this episode that, number one, he was exposed to the drug. It's not just a throwaway thing. He was exposed to the drug. This drug was an experimental drug that went horribly wrong, and these guys couldn't be controlled, and that's why Garrick essentially did what he did. You know, did they kind of gloss over it in the end? Absolutely. But when you take into account what the conversation was about between him and Chief O'Brien in the end, is that when he wakes up and he's talking to Chief O'Brien and he said, "Listen, could you talk to Amara's wife? And this is Andrew Robinson at his best, because he's showing an emotion from Garrick that we never see, and that is remorse. That is, he is genuinely sorry. Yes, is he a killer? 100%. But is he going around randomly killing Starfleet officers on a day-to-day basis? No, this was the drug that made him do it. And it was almost, if you pardon me, it's almost like a bloodlust, kind of like the way the Klingons do. They get a taste for blood and they start killing people, and that's the way they go. This was a guy who had been exposed to the drug. He killed a Cardassian, and it felt good to kill someone, so he had to go kill more. It didn't matter who you were. It wasn't just about a Starfleet officer. He went to kill a Cardassian, killed a Starfleet officer, and then tried to kill Nog and Chief O'Brien as well. So, yes, did they gloss over it? Yes, but you just have to take that one particular part of the scene where Andrew Robinson does show genuine remorse for what he has done, because, he's not out to just kill people. He'll kill the Dominion. He'll kill his enemies on Cardassia. He's not just out to kill random humans on an away mission to help save the space station. But I get what you're saying in terms of it is glossed over. So you take that, you take the points I made, and I'll go with an 8.
Okay, because I was going to go with a 6. So we meet in the middle and say 7?
Okay, we'll say 9.
Nice try, Jerry. But yeah, that'll go with a 7 then for consequence. Yeah. So interesting. Very interesting indeed. Okay, so So I don't know if you've done your maths, Jerry, but where do you think this leads our episode?
I actually don't know. Is it in the 80s or high 70s? Maybe
it's in the 80s.
Oh,
it's in the 80s. Yeah. So if I'm starting off, we're not going to start off from the bottom because we don't have all night, but we do have another entry into the top 10.
Oh.
So. In joint 10th place at the moment is No Small Parts from Lower Decks and The Visitor, 83.5 for both. Emissary, another Deep Space Nine entry, is currently now 8th. Or rather, let me just revise this now. Let me just confirm, because my numbers now are all over the shop after this is a change. Yes, there we go. Yes, there we go. Right, so joint 10th is The Visitor, No Small Parts. In 9th now is Emissary on 84. Then we have The Thaw from Voyager at 84.5. And joint 6th is Voyager's Year of Hell and Deep Space Nine's Empok Nor.
Wow, wow.
Joint 6th.
Got as high as the Year of Hell.
Got as high as the Year of Hell, yeah.
Jesus, I wouldn't have expected that now.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah,
okay. Wow, okay. So, yeah, that's interesting though, I have to say. Very, very interesting.
Absolutely. But like I said, like there's 3 10s in this show, and most of them are like as I said, like this is an example of an episode. We've done loads of episodes before where whatever it was effective at, it nailed. And whatever its natural shortcomings, it did enough to get by. And like I said, it's a solid enough episode. It's good. As I said, the consequences I think are more significant than I gave credit for. So yeah, no, I think 85 ends up being the right score. But of course that means that the top 5 are still unaffected, namely Amok Time from the original series is still 88, Best of Both Worlds still 4th on 90.5, joint 2nd In the Pale Moonlight and A Quality of Mercy from Strange New Worlds. Yesterday's Enterprise still well clear the lead, 95.5, so far still untouched as our best episode we've reviewed on this show. But there you go, we are now out of our top 10 now, and we now have 4 Deep Space Nine episodes in that lot, which is now our current, if you're playing top trumps here, if you're playing the numbers, that is currently our best rated series in the top 10, which I think is quite an interesting little feature there. So there you go. Yeah. Well, so again, that's a really I'll be honest with you now, when I was watching this episode, I was thinking, yeah, this is pretty good and so forth. And then when we start talking about it, you're thinking, actually, no, this is actually there's very little wrong with this episode, in a sense where, like they like, I wouldn't say they did anything like spectacular in it, but this is when you have a really well-oiled show with really good actors and everything's done right and everything's done with minimal fuss. And yeah, there you go. So certainly well worth its score on that front. Were you expecting a an 85 out of 100 for Empok Nor?
I was expecting maybe a high 70s. Something that would be close to the top 10, but not something that was as high as Year of Hell. Like, that's a shock to me. Like, at one point, I believed Year of Hell was going to be number one. So the fact that Empok Nor is up there with Year of Hell is a testament to how good Empok Nor is.
Yeah,
really good. But we're as we said, the top five are untouched. We believed that In the Pale Moonlight was going to stay on number one, and now it's joint second with
the Quality of Mercy, yeah.
Quality of Mercy, and then of course has been beaten by Yesterday's Enterprise. Yesterday's Enterprise is just one of those episodes that it's going to be so difficult to beat. But I do truly believe.
You still believe,
I still believe that I have the episode to beat it.
Yes.
I still believe it. Now, whether that actually comes to or not, we will have to wait and see. But I genuinely believe. Now, the thing is, we have a long way to go before we even get to that episode.
We do,
we have some fantastic episodes coming up.
Yeah, we do, and we're building up to it in a sense. So yeah, with that in mind, then we are going to start building up then to our next episode. Which, again, if you've noticed our little pattern here on this show, we obviously try and we have two kind of arcs on the go to do us for a year or year adjacent, as depending on how our schedules are. With our fifth episode, we try and do something that is kind of a mix of both arcs that we're doing. Our kind of, if you like, our pivot episode, if you will, from where we turn from one to the other. So while this also kind of ticks the box of being a horror episode, it also ticks the box of being a conflict episode. And when we talk about conflict, we're talking about humans versus something, essentially. And while this isn't a horror episode, it is also our first exposure to the new Gorn. And excitingly enough, this is another voyage into New Trek, as we're about to watch the Strange New Worlds episode, All Those Who Wander, which again is another similar, very, very familiar to anyone who has watched Alien. It's very, very familiar to that movie, and various movies of that similar type. But it also is quite character heavy, which is nice, refreshing change of pace, because it has a lot to do with Christina Chong's wonderful character and Noonien Singh, and how she came to be basically being eradicated by her family being eradicated by the Gorn and having to fend for herself. So lots about her. So again, it ticks both boxes on that front, and that will then springboard us into then what is going to be a incredible run of episodes. Well, when it's all about humans versus somebody, or in one case, Bajorans versus Cardassians, which we'll get to very soon. But yeah, that's where we're at now at the moment, Jerry, and that's what to look forward to next on the Best of All Worlds, which I'm sure you're looking forward to, no doubt. But as we always do, considering you are the biggest star out of the two of us here, time to check in the world Jerry Soul to sign off our episode. It's been an interesting one since the last time we spoke, because we had an air of excitement and energy about us in the last episode, but as was actually announced on the night of recording, that has changed, unfortunately, hasn't it, Jerry?
Yes. So if you don't know by now, you'd love to hear that I am one of the co-hosts of the panels at Dublin Comic Con, which is done twice a year, spring and summer edition, March and August. And the last time we were on the show, I was able to officially announce that I was interviewing none other than Kate Mulgrew and Robert Picardo at Comic Con. But unfortunately, just today, as of today of recording, we have found out that unfortunately, due to a conflict in her schedule, Kate Mulgrew can't actually make Dublin Comic Con in August for the summer edition. It is to do with the fact that she is currently in a play in America, and she's not able to leave the country, so she has to continue work on that. And at the end of the day, she is an actor. She has to work. It's what she loves. It's what puts a roof over her head, clothes on her back. So she has to work. So it is very, very disappointing. Yes, but we have been told that the good people of Dublin Comic Con are working with Kate Mulgrew to reschedule her for March, the spring edition of 2025. So it's not a no. It's just no for now. and we'll see Kate Mulgrew down the road. And I'm hoping it's going to be in March of next year, because that would be absolutely fantastic. But we still have some fantastic guests as of right now. Rob Ricardo is going to be there. The good doctor from Voyager is going to be there, and some fantastic other guests. There are Starship Trooper guests. I don't know the names of all of them, but we should be announcing more. I can't really say any more than that. So we're announcing more.
Yet, yeah.
And as we've been talking here, I've just received a message from the big man at Dublin Comic Con for a possible replacement for Kate Mulgrew. Not a Star Trek guest, but an overall fantastic actor. And if this comes about, this will be a fantastic addition for the summer edition of Dublin Comic Con. So watch this space. Hopefully there will be an announcement soon enough. And if we do get this person, that will be fantastic to say the least. But my lips are sealed right now, so we will see come next month.
Exactly. And as I said, you feel free to you will see the man to know in his natural element at Dublin Comic Con if you still are keen, because we got to see enough of him. You're doing the cosplay judging, I think, this time around again.
I will be doing the cosplay competition myself, and Apollo is the guy's name. He is absolutely fantastic at what he does. He kind of ran the masquerade, and I kind of like. I'm looking at him going, you by all means, you take control here, buddy. And I will just talk in the background. He absolutely killed it in March when we did the cosplay masquerade. So this will be the cosplay competition. So people will win prizes here in August. And to say Apollo was good is an understatement. So hopefully the competition. Hopefully the competition goes a bit more smoothly this time round. So we will see anyway.
I think Chewie wants in the cosplay. I think I'm not sure who he'd want the cosplay as, but I'm sure he's got plenty of choices there.
well, Chewie and Vader here behind me are getting very restless. I'd imagine they probably need to pee.
That's fair enough. So if that's a good cue to end the episode, I don't know what is. But
it certainly is.
But by all means, tickets are still on sale for Dublin Comic Con. By all means, support the guys. They do tremendous work every time, especially for an autumn and for the spring edition. And like I said, if things don't work out for autumn, there's always March to look forward to as well. So we'll do that in due course. But for now, guys, that's the end of our episode. By all means, support us in the usual things you could do on YouTube by like, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Let us know if you think we were a bit easy or harsh on Empok Nor. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. And by all means, give us more ideas on episodes or arcs for us to do in the future. We're always open to ideas, even though it might take us about 2 or 3 years to get there, because we have busy lives and we try and do our best. But we try and do what we can on that front. But for now, guys, thank you very much for supporting us. Thank you for watching us all the way to the end. And as always, folks, as we say on this channel,